Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation to bring another video for my cronies. This video is focusing around some list tech, specifically Canoptek Spyders. I know a lot of people out there are rooting for the Spyders, love the model, love the unit, love everything they can do, from the lore to they're just cool. There's nothing else you can say. They're just cool units in Warhammer, Necrons, all of the above. And I have been a very strong advocate behind them. And with the list that I am thinking is going to be the one that I'm going to take to tournaments, it is very, very heavily focused around Spyders. And we're going to talk about them and everything that goes on to that today, as well as talk about the list that I'm going to be more or less practicing for tournament play per se. So guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. Turn on the bell for notification, get notified on all the content we'll bring here on the channel. This was a video I planned out having out a little bit earlier on in the week and was working on and looking over the notes and how I wanted to compose this. And then every single child in my household got sick, all in succession. First the middle, then the oldest, and then the baby. And everyone who has a baby that's sick, oh man, it's the worst because they are crying, they are sad, they're upset, they know that something's not right, and they're like, Mom, Dad, fix this. And well, there's not much we can do except tell them, lay down, buddy, and just gotta try and get some rest so that we can too. So anyways, after I pour my emotions out there, back to what we're all here for, Necrons. So recently, a game that I had versus Lane and his Votan, I played the Xeris build. And I love my Xeris build. I've made some modifications to it that it's very strong. I think it's a great build. I think that Illuminator Xeris, his point drop, warriors decrease, the fact that there's a movie cinematic show on Warhammer Plus, I'm sure has nothing to do with Xeris and the warriors dropping in point cost. It could not have anything to do with that. The build is strong. I think the build is very competitive. However, I like my Canoptek Harvest so much better. Everyone who's been a fan of the channel knows I have a soft spot for the Canoptek units of Necrons. And I don't think that I'm being too over the top when I say I feel like my Canoptek list has just as many, if not more, tools to generally win in the current meta, in the current game of Warhammer 40K. Now, with that, the honorable mention for the Xeris list is, I feel like I built into my Xeris list, I made a couple changes. I now have a second squad of Ophidian Destroyers in there. For those of you who haven't seen that, please check out my list tech from earlier on in the week, where I went over my Necron list that I took against Lane and talked about everything from my Xeris build, from the Scorpack Destroyers to the Ophidian Destroyers, and then check out how the game went. The game went really, really well for the good guys, Necrons, I mean. And the army did really well. And it had a lot of board coverage, a lot of board presence. I didn't feel like at any point in time that there was a secondary that I was drawing that it was completely just like, oh, there's no way I would ever get this. I was able to keep a good point flow with the army. Now, with that being said, I feel that same way with my Canoptek list. While my Canoptek list may not have as strong of an engage on all front or behind enemy lines game, those are cards that are really good for my command point game, because command points are going to be a necessity for my Canoptek list. On top of that, the one thing with the Xeris build is, while it does very well at bogging down infantry and taking out infantry, I don't have a lot of anti-tank. So if there is a strong vehicle build in the meta, it could rough me up pretty bad. Regardless, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're going to talk about the Canoptek Harvest. So the plans of the Canoptek Harvest, I might get a couple pickup games with this. Monday, I plan on doing Grey Knights because I want to bring them on the channel, especially after the point decreases and all the fun I can do with them. But I will be trying to get some pickup games with the Canoptek Harvest. So I kind of wanted to go over the list a little bit, throw some stuff out there. There is one unit that is not fully tweaked, that I'm not fully committed to. And then there is why I'm going with the Spyders and what I found with them that makes them just so brutal, so brutal. But to get into that, we kind of need to go over what the entire list is and what we're looking at. So let's start off with the easy explanation for why they're in the army, the Lychguard. So in this list, I did diminish my overlord down to a lord. I have a Technomancer who will have a Canoptek control node, as well as 10 Lychguard and 2 Crypt Thralls. I'm going with the full accomplishment for this. This is Sword and Board Lychguard. This is probably one of the best center field units in the game. They're super hard to kill, super hard to take down, and the unit can just walk onto an objective. The more my opponent kills, the more I reanimate, the further I go. So this is a great unit for just being able to play center field, hold center field, and take that objective. It plays very, very well off the Canoptek Reanimator, which obviously got one of them. Canoptek Reanimator, as I said, is a never leave home without it unit. At least that's how I felt. So Canoptek Reanimator with the Lychguard, awesome. I'm not going to talk about all the combos that the Canoptek Reanimator can do. He's here to stay. Everything within 12 inches of him gets an additional D3 for his reanimation buff. That includes the vehicles, the characters, everything. Everything just, boom, you get additional D3 on top of your reanimation. So anytime you reanimate. So that's great for the Lychguard off the stratagem, the Resurrection Orb that my Lord has in there, all those different things, awesome. So Lychguard, super durable. Anyone who has used them knows. Very durable, very hard to kill. Technomancer giving the 5-0 Feel No Pain. Crypt Thralls to give us an extra 2. The unit's like a 14-man unit because of the characters in there. And then the Lychguard with a 4-up Embalm, 3-up Save, and then the 5-0 Feel No Pain. On top of the fact that since they're led by a Noble, they are -1 to wound them all the time. The little leak that we've seen, some of us may have seen for some of the potential data shade changes, didn't happen, so that all stays the same. Okay, Lychguard. We've seen, we've talked, we've heard, they're great. They went up in points, still great. I think the only thing is reducing them down by a unit, which is what happened with this list. Previous iteration of this list, I was running 2 squads of Lychguard. I dropped the spears for, this is a test right now, 6 Lokhust Destroyers and a Lokhust Lord. So the Lokhust Lord has the Resurrection Orb and the Veil of Darkness, and the Lokhust Destroyers with the Lokhust Lord will be able to crit with their lethal hits on 5-ups, 3 shots apiece. Honestly, they're pretty mean. They're very mean. I think they have very good ability to take out units, and especially units that are trying to take a flank without any effort. This is a unit that can veil in, shoot, kill, remove. And unless you bring something that actually has value behind it, they're not going to go away. They're not going to go away easily. They're toughness 6. They have 3 wounds apiece. And we have the reanimation strat. We have the Resurrection Orb in the squad. So we have a lot of ways to just keep the squad going unless something real gets dedicated onto them. And in most situations, because of the veil, I don't have to put them in that situation until I'm ready to. As well with the fact that the lethal wounds or the lethal hits means that we can get some extra damage through simply on 5s to other targets. These guys are also a very, very strong target for another stratagem that we're going to talk about towards the end of this because it's going to play in very well with the spiders. So the Locusts are replacing my Lychguard with spears in this list. But when I say that, I mean that their role. These guys, their role is to get to the outside and start working their way back in the middle while taking the least amount of resistance and still being able to remove whatever is getting in their way. I think these guys will do a really good job at it. The Lokhust Lord will have the Overlord's Blade to help get through and clear out some things that might get us in combat and try and bog us down. There is a concern over the fact that if these guys get tagged, then a lot of their abilities go down. So it's going to take some testing and trying them out. Not like I said, I'm not 100% sold on them. I think that I went through a lot of stuff, and I do think they may be the best option. But until I actually get them on the table, we'll know 100%. They're cheap, 180 points for the unit. I think it was 80 or 85 for the Lord. It's not really that bad, plus Veil, but it's not really that bad, especially for their role. Also, including to the fact that a lot of the rest of my army, I think, is going to keep my opponent busy. Now, to play secondaries, I did put in 3 3-man squads of Scarabs. Scarabs, although they cannot take objectives because they're objective control 0, unless you have a command barge, which I don't, do still do really well for secondaries. These are great for engage on all fronts, late game behind enemy lines, as well as any secondaries that require completing an action in X, Y, or Z location. Because these guys are so cheap at 40 points apiece, and they have 4 wounds apiece, it is a 12 wound little bubble that can float around the field and do just actions. Swarms cannot move through runes, but these guys don't necessarily need to for their role and can run along the backfield of the table and be able to hit those different corners, different table quarters, and complete the actions that I need them to. So Scarabs still do a good job in here, as well with the fact that because I have the spiders, cool, I can reanimate an extra Scarab in there for whatever need be purpose. Also, late in the game, slam them in for some mortal wound damage. I mean, they get much, much better mortal wound damage than they did in the previous editions, and it doesn't cost command points for it. So, hey, why not? Late game damage. All right, so now let's get over into the mech portion. First of all, introduce the leader of this section of my army, which is my recently converted Technomancer with Canoptek Cloak. You see here. So one thing you might notice is that my Lokhust Lord and my Canoptek, or my Technomancer with the cloak, both have spider bodies. I wanted to keep with my spider theme. So I went a little bit more with this. I noticed and wanted, especially with having the Canoptek Cloak, I wanted the spider or the Technomancer to be on a bigger base. So converted one up with a spider theme. He's going to have the Sovereign Cornell. And the reason for that is for simply the spiders and all the backfield. The Canoptek Cloak gives him lone operative. So now he can hang out in the back and keep control over all my machines while not necessarily being an easy target because you have to be within 12 inches to even shoot at him. And the machines that he is going to be controlling and giving +1 to hit because of my will be done, as well as the access to the second half of our stratagems for counting as being led by a character. So first, let's start with the Doomstalkers. Doomstalkers have been one that I've been running basically in every list except my Xeris list this entire edition. I think they're amazing. I think they are great. I think that their base size is just big enough to cover the field, cover good portions of field, while still small enough to being able to clutter them in to get multiple shots down a lane with them. One issue that I ran into with these guys was the fact that they cannot, they're AP3. So when you run into a situation of armor contempt and cover, now you're looking at basically only giving a -1 to their armor save and a 4-up to Marines in cover. That wasn't good enough for me. So I switched it up and put in a Triarch Stalker. Triarch Stalker comes in at only like $1.25, so he's really relatively cheap. And then his ability is the fact that any unit he hits does not receive the benefit of cover. I tried him out twice now, and the one time most of the time he does get burned off the table really quickly, but then he dies and not a Doomstalker. And at that time, when a Marine player or any player tries to take a central piece of terrain and be in there and know, I got armor of contempt, I've got benefits of cover, cool. Well, I can't stop armor of contempt, but I can stop the cover. And that's what the Triarch Stalker does really, really well. On top of that, he's also going to synergize very well, again, with the Lokhust Destroyers. Because the Lokhust Destroyers only being AP2, it'll be nice to not let my opponent completely zero out with armor, contempt, and cover, where I can look at the unit and at least keep the cover buff off them. Not to mention, not every army has access to armor, contempt, or the opportunity to use it. And if I'm able to spread out where I'm shooting on the table, I might be able to dodge armor of contempt as well. Armor of contempt is tough. It's very strong. It takes all of our guns and knocks it down in AP. So if you look at any of your weapons and consider the fact that if you're shooting an armor of contempt and you look at that reduction of AP, it's tough, especially for the points that we spend. And then to also include cover in there, one of the two has got to break. We don't have Solar Flare like we did last edition for 1 command point to just knock cover away. So something like the Triarch Stalker, I think, is going to be very crucial for the Lokhust and the Doomstalker. All right, so we've covered, glancing over, so we've covered the Doomstalkers. We've covered and their damage, and just They're damage 3. Great for picking up Terminators and other 3 wound models. And that's definitely when I shoot those things. Because they're D6 plus 1 blast, I want to make sure that those shots are hitting home. Because the more of those shots that hit home, off the reduction of cover, the more models we remove, means that as we lose Doomstalkers, if we lose Doomstalkers, we're at least keeping a good attrition on the table. All right. The moment we've been waiting for. Canoptek Spyders. So Spiders, I love these things. These are silly. So you can take them in squads of 2. Okay. 75 points apiece. So it's 150 points for 2 of them. First of all, these are vehicles, which means that their fabricator array that gives a 6-up feel no pain to any vehicle within 6 inches also affects them. And it affects the Doomstalker and the Triarch Stalker. So right off rip, these guys are already boosting a big portion of my army by giving them a 6-up feel no pain, and which is awesome, especially just I don't know how many times I've forced opponents to shoot extra guns into a Doomstalker to finish it off that they didn't want to. Because if they don't, this thing's running around still with 3 or 4 wounds because I threw 3 or 4 6s on a feel no pain and kept them alive. So that's awesome right there. So +9 there. They reanimate Scarabs, as we talked about earlier. I mean, it's not going to be as relevant in my list, but I promise you, if I play 10 games, there'll probably be a situation where I'm like, oh, cool, you know what? I can put a Scarab base back. So that's at least there. It's cool. They are vehicles, which means that they can also tank shock. So when this unit charges, I can spend a command point, and not only do I get 10 attacks for the unit, 5 per spider, but I will also get the strength 8, which if I'm higher than the unit's toughness will be 10 dice or 8 dice, looking for mortal wounds right there off the impact. On top of the fact, these guys being strength 8, AP 2, and 2 damage also is not bad. Not bad for what 5 attacks, so 10 for the squad. Not bad for that package. They are significantly weaker in the weapon skill department, so the Sovereign Cornell is really going to help in there to be able to give them that +1 to hit for My Will Be Done to get them up to 3s to hit. But that's not all the damage that we're doing out of these guys. Before we get to the damage, though, they also have a Gloom Prism, which we'll see how much Thousand Suns still run amok at the top of the meta. But, I mean, with everything else that I'm talking about with the Spiders, this is just a perk. Having that Gloom Prism. Any unit that is with any Necron unit, so not even vehicles at this point, that is within 6 inches of a unit and then of a Spider that is targeted by a psychic attack gets a 4-up feel no pain versus psychic attacks. And since the recent data sheet that says any psychic ability that does damage counts as a psychic attack, whew, that's going to be spicy. 4-up feel no pain. So Doom Bolt and all the other Thousand Sun powers, or when they suddenly make all their bolters into psychic attacks, 4-up feel no pain. And I mean, I don't see many other armies doing a lot of psychic damage. Grey Knights have a little bit in there, but you know, it's nice to go, oh, cool, you have a psychic offense. Well, I'm going to shut it down for no efficiency. And the best part is, this isn't even why I'm taking them. Here is why I'm taking them. Each spider is able to take a particle beamer. As we've talked about many times before on the channel, the particle beamer is, first of all of these seem to have +1 ballistic skill right off rip. And just in their ballistic skill, just as it is. So these are hitting on 3s for the spider, which means with the Sovereign Cornell, we're going to be hitting on 2s. This is D6 shots, blast. Each spider is equipped with 2 of these. That's very important because when you look at the stat, it shows you 1 particle beamer. But when you read the bottom of the data sheet or the back side of the card, it says each spider is equipped with 2 particle beamers, not a twin. So each spider is going to get 2d6 double blast. Let's throw a couple numbers here. A 2-man squad of spiders that has 4 particle blasters, 4 particle beamers, excuse me, that's shooting at a 20-man squad is going to be 4d6 plus 16 shots hitting on 2s. That is a lot. And I mean, if you're shooting at a 5-man Marine squad, with that squad, you're still getting 4d6 plus 4, because each one's going to get an additional dice. A 10-man squad, 4d6 plus 8. These are good numbers. These are good numbers for this 150-point squad. Let's make these numbers even better. So devastating wounds changed, and that means that things like our Doomsday Arcs got a little bit weaker. Not only did their points go up, but now we can't splash the damage over for devastating wounds as it was before. Those who don't know, the devastating wound rule was changed. Now, devastating wounds still ignore save, ignore invuln, but only to the model that is hit by the attack. So if a single Necron warrior takes a devastating wound for 6 damage, he's taking all of it. Instead of a Eldar Wraith Cannon deciding to put 12 damage behind a devastating wound on a squad of Necron warriors, meaning that you're taking 1 pip of damage to each Necron warrior going through while making if you are or are not making feel no pains. So the spider, it doesn't matter for it though, because it's 1 damage. So each one of our devastating wounds is going to cause 1 damage. So, every 6. And we get a lot of shots that are hitting on 2s. And we have, and we're strength 6. Here was the kicker. So because of the Sovereign Cornell, we count as having a character. And it all comes down to one little stratagem. Protocol of the Conquering Tyrant. Protocol of the Conquering Tyrant is a 1 command point strat that you use in your shooting phase and target one of your Necron units that has not been selected to shoot. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack that targets a unit within half of the firing weapon's range, you can re-roll wound rolls. If a Necron character is leading the unit, until the end of the phase, this effect applies to firing weapons at full range. So each time a model in your unit makes an attack, you get to re-roll all of the failed wounds. Or not even all the failed wounds, all of the to wound rolls. So when you go into something like an Imperial Knight or a vehicle that you might not have been able to take, pitch everything back at it. I mean, even if you were going to wound on a 5, which you wouldn't on a Knight, but even if you would have wounded on a 5, just pitch it all back. Against Marines, pitch it all back. Against Gaunts, keep your 2s to wound because now they're failing saves. But literally, you can, with the spiders, pick up all to wound rolls and throw them and just fish for 6s. Fishing for 6s out of a unit that already hits on 2s and can just put down a bucket of dice onto these things. And I can't tell you, it's just so much just guaranteed damage. It's insane. So I'm running 3 of them. 3 2-man spider teams, 6 spiders in total. So wherever I need that to be, wherever that shot is to make that hit, bam, go in there, reroll all wounds. And at the same time too, that doesn't take away the power from the gun in the spiders on the other units. Sure, they're not re-rolling wounds, but they're probably wounding on 3s versus most infantry. Terminators are at toughness 5, so we're still wounding them on 3s. And every 6 is going to be a mortal wound, or devastating wound now, so excuse me, because it just goes through. But it's 1 damage, so it's going to just keep hitting and nickel and diming through. Spiders are mean. Mean. And a lot of what I'm trying to do with the list is just make sure that I can get a line. I basically draw a line down center field and go Gandalf with this. None shall pass. This is it. You cross that line, everything's hitting you. Doomstalkers on their 5-up Overwatch, or just shooting at you regular. Spiders, everything else. The Triarch Stalker, the Lokhust, all of it just pour onto these spots. And again, that same strat, using that on the Locusts to be able to re-roll the failed wounds is nice. You know, one command point, re-roll everything, cool. Especially just because they're only strength 5. That's efficient for them as well. But the biggest thing is with the spiders, how many devastating wounds? And I know what someone's going to say out there, well, wait, why not do it with Tomb Blades? And I get what you're saying. Tomb Blades, I could take a 6-man squad with 6 particle beamers, and then I'd be looking at 66 shots at that range, at that rate. I don't think that Tomb Blades are nearly durable enough to maintain the attack. You put them out there, you push them out there at 160 points, and get them towards an objective, shoot at something, and then whatever your opponent does to start removing them also depreciates the attack value a lot. Spiders are coming in with a toughness 7 and 6 wounds apiece. These guys are a little bit tougher and stronger, and they're also gaining a feel no pain on themselves. Although the Tomb Blades have -1 to hit, a 3-up save, and a 5-up invuln, and some people might say, well, yeah, but 5-up invuln. Because of Tomb Blades rolls, I feel like you're not going to put them out there in a position to get hit. And when they do get out there in a position to get hit, they're going to get hit hard. And for every blade you lose, you're losing an entire particle beamer. So once 2 Tomb Blades die, now you have the same amount of efficiency that the Tomb Blades bring that you would have gotten out of the spiders for 10 points cheaper. Yes, losing models and stuff like that, but you had to spend 160 right off rip to get the Tomb Blades, and you're not getting the feel no pain to your vehicles, you're not getting the feel no pain on them yourself, and you're not getting a unit that can also fight in combat well. Tomb Blades do not fight in combat. That is not where they're meant to be. So and again, 160 versus 150, it's still 10 points in our favor. So that is what I'm looking at for the Canoptek Spyders, and why I love them, and why I think they are going to be a very, very strong piece for not only this army, but a lot of my armies to come. Being able to just pour that many devastating wounds onto something and just be able to put down that much heat really, really, really appeals to me. They think they do well with the Doomstalkers. Since the Doomstalkers are 3 damage, they may not be able to necessarily finish off some units or tougher targets, that the Spiders will be able to reliably put extra damage onto to finish off targets that are trying to move through. Tougher targets that my Xeraslus cannot really handle. So that's what I got today. That's my Canoptek Harvest. I will be trying to get some games with it this week and get some more pickup games, and which of course I will record and show you guys on the channel. We'll talk about, and if I'm wrong and the Canoptek list starts to, not do so well, I do have the Xeris build that, like I said, I picked up some more Ophidians. So I have 2 3-man squads of Ophidians in there, making some other little tweaks to it. And I do think the Xeris list is very strong. I think it plays a very strong game of 40K in general. And there is a lot of pieces and tools that allow me to more or less play into any matchup. And I feel like the Xeris build is a better all-comers list all around. But I feel like my Canoptek Harvest can play a stronger game of 40K. It can really be able to remove targets that I otherwise wouldn't be able to get inside of my opponent's plans with the damage output from range that I'm able to do that my Xeraslus more so isn't, and more or less allow me to control the tempo and the speed and the movement of the game to be able to cut the field down to a hammer and anvil and prevent my opponent from really crossing that too far. There's a couple stars that are kind of popping up here, different star builds and units, and being able to pick one target and really pour a lot of damage into it from the spiders, from removing the cover and hit them with everything and hit these guys from range and then draw them out of their cover in order to answer me, I think is going to help in the long-term scheme of things. While my list may need to go into turns 4 and 5 to finish and score out the game, I feel like everything in this army has a threat scale and is able to fight and do damage aside from the Scarabs, where the Xeris build, the warriors, don't necessarily push back. They are a excellent tar pit, especially around Xeris, but with some of that lacking that damage means that if you're able to pull out my damage from other units, then it could become a very, very messy game where I can get put in a corner and not be able to move out of it. Where my Canoptek list, everything in it has a threat, everything has a momentum, and if a plan kind of falters, I have a lot of ways to change it up, wheel, and tool around. Xeris, if you're able to cut off my legs, no pun intended, Illuminator Xeris, he's got 4 of them. If you're able to cut off my legs, then it just might be a slow and painful death. And I think that we're going to see more and more lists that are going to start to prepare for Xeris because of how powerful he is. So the only way to prepare for the lists that are preparing for Xeris is to prepare to not run Xeris, right? Totally made sense. So, all right, guys, that's my list. What I'm going to be trying to, what I strongly think I'm going to be getting ready for competition, give or take the Lokhust. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Hopefully we'll get some games with this soon. And as always, drill responsibly. I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for watching.